Hey everyone, welcome to DevRunner. My name is Paul. I'm an endurance runner and an RRCA certified running coach. And this is Subscriber Spotlight, where I have conversations with inspiring runners to help motivate you on your running journey. My guest today is an endurance runner and a fellow YouTuber hailing from the United Kingdom. To me, she is the absolute embodiment of the successful endurance athlete. Her determination and her discipline in her training, both for running, for cross training and strength training, keeps me motivated so often. I just, I can't tell you. So it's absolutely my pleasure to welcome Rachel D to my channel. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Hi, Paul. It's nice to be on your channel. Thank you for that introduction. That was very kind of you. I think that we should just call it a day there. That was absolutely perfect.
Well, I've got a lot of questions for you because I think everything about what you present on YouTube is a great example for other runners. So I want to make other people aware of your channel. And I'm just excited to talk to you and kind of pick your brain a little bit about your views on running in general.
Yeah, that'd be really good. I'm ready to go.
Cool. So just to get started, I'm hoping you can share just like a short bio, who you are, where you're from, whatever you want people to know about you, just like right off the bat.
Okay, so obviously my name is Rachel. I'm 43 years old and I come from a town called Redditch, which is just south of Birmingham, and that's in the UK. My job is a swimming instructor, so that's my day job. I teach children, young children, how to swim and also school children how to swim, which needs a lot of patience and presenting a nice, happy, smiley face all the time. And I combine that with caring for my parents as well. So my parents are getting quite elderly now and need extra help at home.
Gotcha.
So I live at home with my children. So I've got 3 children. They are 20 and 17 and 13. And I combine all that with my training, really. That is my life, really, in a nutshell, I would say.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you've got a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of responsibility, and you're still managing to be a highly successful endurance athlete. So that's amazing to me. I'm hoping maybe you can dig into your athletic background a little bit and tell us about whatever you think is relevant that kind of ended up leading you into running.
Okay, I think it probably boils down to having a real good childhood where I was just thinking, well, you're not even encouraged to be active. You are just someone who, I think being a child in the 80s, I was just outside all the time. I was outside playing, I was out on my bike, I had swimming lessons, any activity or club or sport that I wanted to do. And I was always really keen and enthusiastic to do that. So it was never anything that was pushed on me. I was never, oh, go and do this. I just had that desire to go and do things and be active. I was climbing trees, I was building dens. We never had a car until I was 11 years old. So I did spend quite a few years. I wanted to go anywhere, it was either on my bike or just walking there myself. And that kind of just set me up through rolling on into my teenage years and then on to obviously adulthood. I just enjoyed being active. So I don't think there was ever a moment where I was not active. And I always just thought that I enjoyed doing things. I enjoyed being outside in the fresh air and running around. I used to remember with my friends at the park, if someone had a little stopwatch with them, we'd make a little assault course that we could just like climb over slides and around the roundabouts, and someone would stand there and go, right, let's go, who can do it the fastest? And it was just a great way to grow up. And looking back at it now, I can see that that's where almost my desire to just run around and do things probably as fast as I could, because that's how I am as an adult. I just enjoy being fast and doing things as fast as I can.
That's so cool. So you were very much sort of like just like the free spirit child. That's the way I grew up in the 70s. And I was never really a part of like organized sports until much later in life. But it sounds like it was very similar for you, where you were just kind of just being active generally.
Yeah, just being outside. I did join a few little clubs. Like I say, I did my swimming, and my parents got me involved in a canoe club. So I did a lot of canoeing. We went away on weekend camps for that. Any opportunities at school that came up. So I did the usual sports at school, like the hockey and the netball and the tennis. And I was never great at doing it, but I always enjoyed doing it, which I think at that age is really important. But yeah, just growing up, if we did like adventure training where we got to try out rock climbing and abseiling and just anything that was put in front of me, I just grabbed it with two hands and just really enjoyed doing it.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So you've always had that sort of natural affinity for just being active. That's great.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting, Rachel. That kind of leads me naturally into my next question, which is how you moved from, just sort of free form activity to being a dedicated runner. So I'm hoping you can go into some detail about that.
I think for this question, it's quite a long one for me, really. There's no black and white moment where I officially became a runner. Going through my college years, so when I was 16 and 17, I had a bit of a desire to join the military. So I knew that I needed to be quite fit for that. And to help me along with that, I decided to join a local running club. And although I wasn't there for that long because my join up came through quite quickly, I did some training on the track, which I'd really done. I'd never done that before. I was training with an older group. Because of my age, I couldn't join in with the juniors. I was with the older ladies, so they were all pretty experienced. And without the days of the internet or YouTube or anywhere where you could get your information, those coaches there were there to guide you. And the ladies there that were running as well, they'd had years of running experience. So I really enjoyed training with them. And again, I was never really fast. I was never the best. I'm not doing this sport or any activity that I've ever done because, well, back then, not that I'm the best now, but what I'm saying is I was just some average person wanting to try new sports and try and make myself better. So I was with them for a while because to join the military, so I joined the army. I was in the army for 5 years.
Okay.
You have to pass basic fitness tests just to get in. So there's strength exercises, which include press ups and sit ups, but they also have a timed run where you have to run 1.5 miles. I can't even remember what the time is, but that was always my goal. You had to jog for 1.5 miles, you'd turn around, and then you'd have to basically give it all you've got. And the time that you got would determine whether they'd accept you in or not. They had slight variation for male and female. So it was always a little bit more lenient for the ladies who were wanting to join. But that just gave me something to work towards. I used the running club for the training, but I also, even at that age, had the motivation to go out and do my own few runs. And looking back, I didn't run very far. I've got a local lake that's not even 1.5 miles long, but I used to just go around it, run around it as fast as I could. And that was my training. And it was enough to get me in. And I did quite well and passed all the fitness tests and all the assessments with flying colours. And then obviously joining the forces as well, that was just a natural progression for me for trying new activities. I became very strong. I was good at the shorter distances because there was a lot of emphasis on this basic fitness test, which is something that they continually assess you on just to make sure that your fitness levels are a basic standard for you to be a quality serving soldier, really.
I got you.
So yeah, I was doing a lot of short stuff. I wasn't really doing anything endurance wise. I was still doing maybe a few of my own runs. But I think what I liked the best was that obviously outnumbered by males, there was obviously fewer females and more males. And I really enjoyed the challenge of beating the men or trying to keep up with the men because the men didn't like the ladies catching them up. So yeah, there were some very fast ladies out there and they would run very fast. And I knew that they were good. Me being me, I'm quite competitive. And I thought, I'm not picking off the ladies here. I'm picking off the men only because I know what men are thinking when I'm overtaking them. I quite enjoyed that. So my challenge wasn't so much to be the best of the ladies, but to be an equal to the men and to be as strong as the men as well. We all had to do the same job. We all had to be of an equal fitness standard to perform our job to the best of our ability. And I enjoyed being strong. I did a lot of gym work because there's good facilities on the bases that you go to, and it's all free. It's there. It's like, here's a gym, use it whenever you like. You do your training. Some people had to be pushed to do their training, but with my natural character, that was just something that I naturally and always did and really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
So
I
I
guess.
served for 5 years and I maintained that fitness. I left because I was ready to start a family. And then probably for the next consecutive 10 years, running for me became a very stop-start activity. Obviously being pregnant, I did run up until 30 weeks pregnant with my daughter. So she's
Wow.
now 20. And then when she was born, I had a running buggy and I did a few events with her, a few 10Ks, and she was in the buggy and I took her along with me as well.
That's so great.
And then, like I say, it was stop start there. Then I had another child, and then it just became a bit too much. I think running is a very, you can fit it into your life, but there comes a point where if life is very busy in itself, if you're doing running as well, I was just getting ill all the time, and I wasn't able to train like I wanted to train. So for me, I wasn't very good at compromise. For me, it was like all or nothing. So it took a back seat and I'd stopped for 6 months. I'd stopped for a year. And then it was when my youngest, who is now 13, when she was about 2 or 3, from that moment onwards, I consider myself to be a continuous runner. So probably for about 10 years now, I've not had any stop starts. It's just been, apart from, 6 months off here or there with a bit of injury or, just the usual coughs and colds that put you out for, a few things. But since then, I've just built up. I've done, it's when I did my first marathons, and it's when I did my ultra runs. I've tried so many different new activities. I love to try new things. Although I go back and test myself on things that I've already done before, I like to just try new things. So every year I'm doing some things that are the same, and then every year I like to add new activities or just take my running in a completely new direction as well.
That's so great. That's so great. So you're always keeping it fresh, even though you've been consistent over 10 years, as you said. So Rachel, you've kind of, again, you're leading me perfectly through my questions. I'm wondering, and I think you already revealed one of these, talking about overtaking the men when it comes to, the Army training. But I'm hoping you can talk a little bit more about what you consider the highlights of your running career. And I'd love to hear about PRs, but I'm also just as interested in the runs or the experiences that are related to running that had a big sort of emotional impact for you.
So I think I've got 3 answers for you there. Firstly, I think I class my whole running career as a success. The fact that I have been active all my life and I'm still active now, and I still have as much, I've probably got, where I am now, I've got as much passion and desire and enthusiasm to continue. And I think to get to this stage and not be bored of the sport and not have had enough of it and just given up, or I've still got that enthusiasm, and the fact that I've continued it for so long, I just consider that a real personal success. That whatever's going on in my brain just tells me, Rachel, you enjoy running and you're just going to keep doing it. And I have no desire at all to stop.
That's
but
awesome.
If you pinpoint a specific event, I would definitely go with my first marathon. So as a runner, I think it's a bit like the holy grail of running is to run that marathon. And I think you're influenced so much more now because of YouTube and the big events, like for us the London Marathon. They're big events and there's so much publicity about it. I think it's a lot easier to get into the sport and be encouraged and get the guidance and the training from those sources. But even 10 years ago, it's like running a marathon is a really big deal. And it is now. Anyone who takes on their first marathon, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
You always have that doubt. Well, am I going to be able to complete it? Am I going to be able to do it? So in 2013, even though I'd been running for years and years, it wasn't up until that point that I got the confidence to think, do you know what? I'm going to give this a go and I'm going to run it. And I got a training program off Runner's World online, and I followed it to the letter. And it was the days before GPS watches, and there was I just had a basic stop-start watch, and I trained what I thought was the best way. And the story behind it is that I was down to do Stratford Marathon. That was the very first time that I booked and entered it. But 24 hours before I was to stand, 48 hours before I stood on the start line, my daughter picked up a sickness bug. 24 hours after that, then I got it.
Oh, no.
If you know how quick that they pass through you, I thought, up until about 3 a.m. in the morning of the race, thought there's no way that I'm doing this. But in the last 4 hours before morning arrived, I thought, maybe I'm going to give this a go. So me being me, I stood on the start line, not having eaten anything. There was no carb loading. There was no anything. I had all the food. I had all the bagels in the cupboard, but I hadn't touched them. I had all the fresh orange juice, and I couldn't take any of that on. And so my body was completely depleted. Thought, I'm just going to try and just see what happens. And I got to the halfway point in 2 hours, because my goal was to do a 4-hour marathon. I got to the halfway point in 2 hours, and I set off on that second lap. And then by about 14 or 15 miles, I hit the actual wall and I had nothing left. And then I walked to 18 miles, and then I pulled out, and I thought, today's not my day.
Yeah.
But then 8 days later, there was the Milton Keynes Marathon. So I handed my money over to that. I signed up. I got one of the last places there, drove over to Milton Keynes, and I got my 4-hour marathon. So this was 8 days after completely failing on the first one.
Wow.
I went over to Milton Keynes, and I ran. It was 3 hours 57. And the best part of that race was probably getting to 20 miles. And I kept again, I didn't have any way of knowing what my pace is. I don't know whether you ever remember, you could print off a pace band.
Oh yeah.
Tape it to your wrist, so it told you at mile 1 it needed to be this time. So I took the mile markers from the course. So mile 7, I needed to be there in that time. So I mean, that's like really basic stuff. And I just kept on each of those miles. I ticked them off, and I got there to the end. And that last 5 or 6 miles, the amount of people that I overtook, because they were the ones that had hit the wall or gone off too fast. And I crossed that line, I thought, and it was that one moment, I thought, I've done it. If I can do that, I can do anything. And for the even bigger and longer races that I've done, it all boils down to that very first marathon, having that self-doubt that, can I even do it? I did it, and I did it under difficult circumstances that I'd failed the week before, but I thought, that's not me. I know that I can do this. And I went back and did it. So my first marathon was sub 4. I did fail the next 2 or 3 marathons because I got a bit cocky with myself and thought, I'm good at these marathons now. So I did like a 4:15 after that. The time after that, I did a 4:27. Okay. And then I thought, Rachel, it's still a long way. Don't think that because you've done it once, it's going to happen every time. It's still a long way, and you've still got to treat that distance with the respect that it deserves. Mm-hmm. And then I saw it like switch the other way then.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that story that you told about the first marathon, because it's like, oh my goodness, to even attempt to toe the line for that one when you were sick the night before, wow. And to bounce back so quickly, that's just amazing. You know,
it was 7 a.m. in the morning that I made the decision. I was lying there thinking, I feel okay. And when you've had a sickness bug, like I say, it clears really quick. And I think if I'd had a day at home, I would have ate normal and I would have drank normal. And maybe if I had 24 hours longer, I could have built up enough, but I hadn't drank anything, hadn't eaten anything. And that's not the way to go and do a marathon. But I gave it a try anyway.
Just amazing, just amazing. And you know, I've never heard that story from you before. So all that does to me is just reinforce everything I said in the intro. It's just like the determination, the discipline that you have is incredible. You know, and it's just shining through as you speak through this interview. So just amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And what I'm going to do now, Rachel, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to talk about your motivation to start a YouTube channel. How did that happen?
Okay, well, for me, YouTube has a big influence on the things that I want to do. It puts ideas into my head that otherwise wouldn't be there. I've ran 2 100-milers. And like I say, taking that motivation and that determination from that very first marathon, I never thought I could run 100 miles, but people on YouTube are running 100 miles. And I think, well, if they're doing it, all I've got to do is use that same formula and transfer it over. So I get so much out of YouTube. There's people out there that influence the things that I do, like my wild camping. During lockdown, there was a lot of people doing wild camping, and I was watching a lot of outdoor walking videos because I also enjoy doing that. So watching them do something makes me want to do it. And I think, well, I've got quite an interesting life activity wise, and I'd really like to do that. And probably 3 or 4 years ago I didn't have the technology for me to be able to do that, so it needs to be really basic for me to be able to. I don't do anything on a laptop, everything is done on my phone. So when I first started recording, I was just recording on my phone, and holding my phone on a selfie stick is not like the what's the word, the balance, no, what's it called, the just keeping something steady.
Oh yeah, yeah, just
um,
yeah, the I know
that
what you're
word.
saying.
You know, it was appalling, and for me it was just to give me a little bit of confidence and just push myself again. I'm someone who likes to just push myself a little bit in the areas that I'm slightly comfortable with. And I thought I've got quite a lot to share here. And although I've missed, I probably could have started, if I had the technology 10 years ago, I probably would have had quite a long and good and interesting amount of information to share with you and on the journey along the way. But it's only now that I can do editing on my phone, and I got a little Insta360 Go2 camera as well, and everything's just on there. It just syncs straight onto my phone. Then I just take that straight onto the editing app and do it all there, and then I upload from the phone anyway. So I'm not having to do anything that involves a laptop or storage cards. I've no idea with anything to do with that. I think another reason for starting YouTube is that it documents my life. And I think when I'm older and I'm not doing this, it's something for me to look back on. But also for my children, they couldn't care less what I'm doing. They see mum go out doing these things. And do you know what? I don't think none of my children could tell me the marathon time that I've just done. I think one knew that I was at the marathon because he came, but the other two, oh, did you run a marathon today, Mum? Yeah, I did. Well, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, they'll go, oh, yeah, my mum was a runner and maybe she was quite good as well. So it's just, there's quite a few things. I'm motivated by other YouTubers. I want to try and put something back into that as well. And for myself, my own confidence levels, I think anyone who has a YouTube channel are the bravest people ever, because you're sharing your life, but you're also having the confidence to talk in front of a camera as well, which a lot of people wouldn't like to do anyway. And
Yeah,
just for my children to have something to look back on in the future, really.
that's so great. That's so great. Yeah, I mean, once you know all of our children get a little older, that's when you know when you reach those middle years of life, you kind of you start to see your parents as people, not just sort of background noise. So you know
That's right.
it'll be wonderful for them to be able to look back and see just how determined and how successful you were with your running. So that's great. That's great. Um, I want to ask you this, just to kind of take that whole motivation idea a little further. I'd like to know what's motivating you these days and what your future goals are for your running and YouTube.
Um, Basically, just to keep continuing what I'm doing, really. My motivation has never, well, no, that would be a lie. I wouldn't say it's always there, but I never consider myself not to be a runner. I think until my legs fall off or I'm physically not able to do it, I can't, I don't see a time in the future where I'm not a runner. So for me, motivation is never really a problem. And I think with running, there is always a different goal. Like for you, you've come straight off the marathon and you're now going for a 1 mile PR. Well, they're two ends of the spectrum, aren't they? And it keeps it fresh and it gives you the motivation. Well, I've laid that to rest for a little bit. I may go back to it in the future, but this is what I want to do now. And once you've done this, you either get your goal or you don't get your goal, but there'll always be another goal beyond that. And you can do trail, you can do ultra running, you can do, there's so many things that you can do. And I don't,
Mhm.
it's not just running, it's a sport that has so many different avenues. And I like that because I'm someone, I get sometimes criticized that, Rachel, you want everything. You want to get a 5K PB and you want a marathon PB in the same week. Well, I like that. I like that 1 week I'm doing that, and then the next week I'm doing something else, and then the next week I'm in the mountains, like climbing as high as I can. And it just, it's a sport for me that just never gets boring. And if trail running is quite new, that's probably only been there in the last 5 years for me. So there's still lots of avenues down there for me that I want to go. And I think one of my biggest goals, I always have the time goals that I want to do, but I'm looking to try and do the 100 miles in 24 hours or under. So that's for me like a big goal. And I think the older I get, I may be getting slightly unrealistic with expecting some of the times that I want to, because I'm very close, but I know how much effort I've put into getting so close to some of those goals that I did all that and didn't get it. All I'm doing now is getting older. Can I actually do better? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Rachel, there's a couple of things I want to say to that, because number one, you're a spring chicken. Compared to me, you've got all the time in the world to get faster and
Going
faster.
too long, and I'm not there yet.
You've got several years of where you should be able to expect nothing except improvements. One thing I'm finding, you know, as an almost 53-year-old, is that getting better, you know, for me at this point, I've been running for almost 11 years now. It's a matter of just finding new ways to push in the places where you were kind of lacking. Like for me, it's like pushing the strength training to its maximum now, I think is going to help me see improvements in the marathon, and abandoning a bad plan that I had for the last 6 months and going for the more tried and true stuff. But I think you achieving all of your goals and going far beyond is perfectly realistic. Don't start getting negative about it now, because you have so many PRs ahead of you. You know.
Well, I do hope so, and I hope that's the way that it pans out. But I'm also prepared that after 10 years of climbing up the fitness and the strength ladder, that at some point I'm going to be on that peak. And it's just like you say, it's fine-tuning those last few things and finding out what they are, putting them in the right place at the right time, and just getting that perfect race, perfect weather, perfect everything. And it might only happen once, but you just don't know. And that's again another, going back to your last question about motivation, you don't know what that next race, maybe that's going to be the PB. You know, I might do another 10 marathons and it's the 10th one that I get the PB, but do I give up when I'm doing between 1 and 9? You know, there's always the unknown. You never know till you cross that finish line what time you're going to get. So anything can happen, can't it, really?
Exactly. And I love the fact that you see that as motivational, not something to sort of like say, well, that sounds too hard, I'm just going to walk away now. I love the fact that you are willing to continue to push till you get there, because that's the whole battle, really. It all happens in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep turning up and just seeing what happens, can't you?
Exactly. So kind of to bounce off that a little bit, I'm going to ask you sort of probably the most philosophical question that I ask people in these interviews, and that is, how has running changed your life for the better?
So when you pose this question to me, I think it's almost like you need to take the word better away from it. It's just changed my life, but it's just my life. That's just what I do. I've done it for so long throughout, like I said, my active childhood and then joining the forces, and it's just been there. So I'm not even sure it's changed my life for the better, because I don't really know what it's like not to be there. And it's always there when you're having those rubbish times. I mean, you can have rubbish days, but I've experienced quite a few rubbish years as well. But running has always been my staple, something that's always been there. A lot of the time I don't want to run, or I don't enjoy running, but I never consider it not to be a part of my life, because I enjoy the overall effect that it has on me, as in it keeps me fit, it keeps me healthy, it gives me challenges, it keeps me social, it just brings positivity into my life. But to say what it would be like without running in my life, I wouldn't really know, because like I say, it's always been there, and I wouldn't know. I'd have to restart my life from day one and not start running around the house as a toddler, as I'm sure I probably do. Yeah, it's just always been there. So I can't say it's changed my life for the better. I think if you're coming to running a lot later in life, you can assess pre-running and post-running, and you can compare the two, can't you? But I think if it's always been there, I don't really have anything to compare it to from pre-running, really.
Yeah, I got you, but you did manage to list off a whole lot of things that sounded very positive there. So I think you kind of answered my question without even knowing it. So let me ask you this. with all of the positive outlooks that you have towards just staying fit, towards staying determined and disciplined, I want you to share, which it doesn't have to be like the penultimate perfect piece of advice, but share what you consider an important piece of advice for other runners.
Well, you actually covered it earlier on, and you said it is strength training. So if you take an example of a 22-minute 5K, if you're training 4 times a week running and you're getting 23 minutes at your 5K, if you take one of those sessions away and put in a strength session, so you're doing 3 runs and 1 strength session, and you told a runner who wasn't achieving their time goal that if that was the pattern that you were to follow, you would get your 22-minute 5K, a lot of people would just think, no, I just want to run, but I still want to get that goal as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you substitute part of your running that you're already doing, if you're not doing strength training whatsoever, if you just put strength training into it as well, you will achieve far better than not having it there at all. And that was the biggest one thing that made the biggest difference for me and made my times come down, and you just feel like a stronger runner. But so many runners don't like to do the strength training, but if you could show them the end goal, that if you did introduce that strength training into your training program, you will become a faster runner. And it's black and white. And I don't think that it was introduced to me, and I did it slowly, and then I built it up, and then my times just came right down. And it was so obvious because I'd been doing one method for so long and my times have plateaued. And as soon as I brought this strength training in, I got so much better at my running.
It's just amazing. That's amazing. I'm so glad that you said that, because as a coach, it's hard, especially when you're coaching a new runner, to make them believe that. But you know, again, this clip is going to get played over and over again as I onboard people, because you just said it so clearly and so well. Thank you for that. I want to ask you, before we start preparing to close down this interview, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a left field question. I'm hoping that you can share something here in this interview that your viewers might not already know about you, something just kind of like fun.
Are we talking fitness related or life, or just like in general?
Anything you want to share, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I asked my children this and they were like, oh, I could tell. And they were thinking, well, I don't really know what you could say. I don't think there is even anything that I could possibly tell you that I don't already share, because basically I'm a runner and I run, I work, I run a house. And that's about it. I think my party trick, if I was ever to go to a party, not that I've been to a party in probably 20 years, is that I can write backwards joined up. So that's probably the only interesting fact that is not running related, is that when I was younger, we had a trip to Scotland, which was probably about a 7-hour drive. And the day before any kind of entertainment in the car, it was either looking out the window or like colouring in a notebook. So on that 7-hour journey, I decided to sit there and teach myself not only how to write backwards, but I can write backwards joined up.
That is so cool, Rachel. I'd love to see. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, I might make a video on that one, because that's
exactly.
I might lose a few subscribers, but hey, some might be quite impressed on it.
Yeah, I'd love to see it for sure. So, Rachel, speaking of subscribers and viewers, I'm hoping that you will now share the various different social media outlets that you have, so that people can find you and subscribe to you, because I think, especially you on YouTube, you are such a motivational, inspirational runner that I want more people to become aware of everything you're doing. So please share away.
Well, I only exist on YouTube. So if anyone ever wants to find me, that's where you just have to leave a comment on any of my videos. My channel is called Rachel D. So Rachel space capital D. And that's it. I have a very, very limited Facebook account. I have no Twitter, Instagram. I don't exist anywhere. I think YouTube in itself provides everything that I need for my day-to-day life. And I think if I was starting to add extra distractions in along the way, then any other social media for me, I think, would just take up too much of my time. So any kind of contact will be through YouTube.
Gotcha. Okay. And please don't worry. I will share the link to your channel below in the show notes so that people can get to you easily. Everybody, if you haven't already while you're watching this, I'm sure by now, if you've made it this far into the interview, you realize what a great person Rachel is. So just get over to her channel right now and get yourself subscribed. It's just a lot of fun. And Rachel, as I said at the beginning of all this, you keep me motivated on the days that are a little bit more difficult for me to get out the door. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed speaking with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Very cool. Have a great night, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.